Hi again guys, and welcome to what is most probably going to be the final episode of Spirit of Le Mans, the review series for the prototype class racing Le Mans cars of Gran Turismo 6. So in this episode, obviously, as you can see, we are reviewing the brand new Nissan Nismo GTR LM, which was released today as part of GT Academy 2015. This is a unique LMP car. It's front engine, front wheel drive, has an unusual hybrid system, kind of like a pullback toy car. And you can't really tune it. So what you get is what you get. But is what you get competitive? Well, let's go to the track and find out. Now, obviously, having a front-engine, front-wheel drive prototype layout does present unique challenges to driving, and to be honest, on a city track, you'd think you'd notice this more than anywhere else. Now, I was expecting this car, to be honest, to be awful on this track, but as it happens, it's actually not too bad. The handling, in fact, is actually very good, and that's what's deceptive about this car. It can appear to have quite difficult handling, but it actually doesn't. It's not the handling that makes it difficult. It's the uptake of power through the front wheel drive chassis. So for low speed handling, I'm actually going to give this car a strong 5 because it does have very good low speed handling. It's very nimble and it doesn't slide out at all thanks to the front wheel drive. For acceleration though, I'm going to give it a 4. And although it is very quick mid-range, pretty quick top end, low end, you just can't get the power down properly. And unfortunately, overall on a city track, it is significantly slower than all of the other LMPs. It's actually 8 seconds slower from my testing than the Nissan R92 CP around this track. So for city tracks, it's only going to be a 3 out of 5 for this car. So a bit of a mixed result for city tracks, but what about for a more higher speed technical track? Well, let's go to Ascari to find out. Now, although as we said, more higher speed technical tracks do provide this car with more opportunity to use its huge hybrid power, the problem is technical tracks are by definition still technical tracks, and they do require a lot of handling prowess. And again, for mid-range handling, like with low-speed handling, this car performs very well. Its turn-in is great, and it has very good handling. But again, it's that uptake of power and torque which really hampers this car's performance. So for mid-range handling, I am actually going to, again, give it a strong 5 because it does handle very well. For drivability, though, I'm only going to give it a 4. And I was expecting to give it a 5, but the reason why I can only give it a 4 is because it's definitely not the most difficult LMP to drive, but it is definitely one of the more difficult ones to get the best out of. And it is, in my personal opinion, quite a frustrating car. So overall, for technical tracks, I'm going to give it a 3. And the reason for that is because although it's not undrivable, like with city tracks, it falls so far behind its rivals that it's just not a feasible alternative. Especially when you can't adjust the downforce, you can't adjust the gears, and you can't give it more power to compensate on the straights. So not a particularly great result for technical tracks, but can it redeem itself on a high-speed track? Because at the end of the day, it's designed for the Le Mans, which is one of the highest speed tracks around. Well, let's go to Spa and find out. Now, as I alluded to on Ascari, the main disadvantage that this car has is that you cannot compensate for its lack of cornering prowess. And if they had let us make the car significantly more powerful, I believe it would have been much more competitive. Because as it happens, even with its hugely powerful hybrid system, you lose so much time in corners from just not being able to get the power down without wheel spinning, that it just ends up being so much slower than all of its rivals. Now, with the right driver, I'm sure you could put a competitively close lap in, but the amount of work this car requires to get that lap just isn't worth it. It's never going to be as quick as cars like the Pascalo Hybrid, the Audi R10, the Sauber C9 or the R92 CP. It just can't compete. It's not powerful enough on the straights to be significantly challenging, and it's so slow on corners that it doesn't make up for it there either. I mean, at least with the Zytek that was released before, it had amazing handling. This car just doesn't have anything significantly good going for it, apart from it's quirky. And that's where its advantage ends, and quirkiness isn't even an advantage, it's just a fact. So overall, for city, or for high-speed tracks I should say, I'm only going to give it a 4. Because although it performs reasonably well on the Le Mans, that's pretty much it. On any other track, it is blown into the weeds by virtually all of its rivals. Even the Toyota TS30 Hybrid, which is one of the least powerful LMPs, can defeat this car on virtually any track. And that's a shame, because I was hoping that this car would be one of the best in the game, but it's just not. So that's it for our track-based testing. Let's finally go back to the garage for a roundup of its best and worst point. Overall, I have to say, the problem with this car is not that it's front-wheel drive. The problem is that Polyphony hyped it up so much, but then shot themselves in the foot by not allowing you to tune or upgrade it. Because at the end of the day, for its power and weight, it is a quick car. But unless you severely restrict its rivals, such as the R92 CP or even the modern Le Mans prototypes, it just doesn't stand a chance against them. Because although all of its individual ideas are very clever and very intriguing, on the game they just don't work put together. It's just not fast enough. And the problem with putting 1,000 horsepower through the front wheels as this car does is you just can't do that. No matter how advanced your aerodynamics, no matter how much downforce you have, even if you had a fan system, you've only got one of two options. You can either use all of that power and waste time wheel spinning, or you can use a fraction of the power and waste time because you're not going as quick. So either way, you're doomed to failure. This car just cannot compete out of corners against its rivals. Now in real life, obviously it's different, because things like driver error, reliability, and the fact that people can't push cars as far as in a game do affect a car's performance. But on the game, that performance is all that matters, and the fact is this car does not have the performance to keep up with the big prototypes that are already on the game. And as a result, it falls way behind them on all three track types, which is a real shame. I was hoping for this car to have around a 4.9 out of 5 overall rating. I was honestly expecting it to be one of the quickest and one of the best prototypes in the game, but it just isn't. In fact, it's one of the slowest, if not the slowest, on most tracks. And its overall rating, as a tabulation of all of its individual scores put together, is a rather uninspiring 3.9 out of 5, which is a real shame. I was hoping for big things from this car, but it just doesn't deliver. So as always, I'll put this car's ratings and lap times in the video description, and as I said before, this is probably going to be the final episode of Spirit of Le Mans, so thank you guys, especially who have watched all of the episodes. If this is your first time, welcome. You might want to backtrack a bit, but as always, thanks for watching.